In this programme, we take a detailed look at the Philips widescreen TV, find out why Network South East have pride in London, Tilbury and Southend, and what's askew in R&D. Hello, but first of all, one of our new products this year is the KT5, which is in fact a Ferguson FB62LV. In the past, Fergusons have come into Granada and Vision Hire mainly by way of rental account acquisitions. When you took the top off, there was a JVC inside. Thorn have, of course, sold their TV and VCR manufacturing operations to Thomson of France. So when we look into Ferguson, we see something a bit different. Thomson design and build their own VCRs. This one has been assembled in Singapore. Peter Hurd has come in to tell us some more. Peter, what particular features does this VCR offer us?
Well, it's got quite a good range of features. One of them is on-screen display menus. If I just put that into stop for a moment and call one of them up, this is the tape control menu, and you can see a couple of the other features of the machine. There's the go-to business, where you can set some number into the counter and then fast wind to that number. These numbers down here refer to VIS, that's Video Index Search System. Again, we've seen these on other machines. They're not new, of course, but they're useful nonetheless.
Yeah, number 4 there, I'm not familiar with that. Picture plus off, it says. What's that?
Yes, a bit of a funny one for a tape control menu. If you've got a pre-recorded tape, perhaps it's been out on rental for 18 months or something, it's getting a bit tired, you can try and improve the picture quality by flicking picture plus between on or off, simply by pressing option 4. So you could try with the picture on or with picture plus off, and whichever gives you the better picture, then that's fine for you.
Something worth trying anyway. That's picture plus. This also has video plus, doesn't it, I believe?
Indeed it does, yes. If we change back to the main menu, okay, video plus is number 2. And there we go. Now, if you can feed me a number, I can enter
Certainly.
a number in here.
Got today's paper here. What should we choose? Something, here we are, today's television, something really classy. How about El Dorado? 4212, well, I wouldn't want to miss that.
4212, entered the number. If I'm happy with the number, press yellow. Okay, and there we go, all programmed in. Starts at 7, ends at 7:30 on program 01, which is BBC One. And today's date, 25th of November.
Hang on a minute though, why is it flashing 1930 at me, the stop time?
Right, okay. If you've got an inkling perhaps that the programme is going to be running late, you can add an extra 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatever onto the stop time so that you catch the end of the late programme.
So very useful, something like a live sporting event, something that might well run over.
Exactly, yes.
And it actually offers you that that feature there. It reminds you to adjust the stop time.
Indeed it does, yeah. Of course, if you're going to make a lot of recordings, then you can choose standard or long play for lots of recordings. Half-speed record is a better term for that. But once you set all that up, you simply press exit to leave. Okay, there we go, and it even tells you to insert a tape and press the timer button. I mean, you just can't go wrong, can you?
Famous last words. And that's
right.
it. You've been whizzing through the handset there, showing us these things, but you are a bit of a whiz kid, come on, let's be honest. Is it actually very simple to operate and simply laid out, or not?
Oh yes, it's very straightforward. I mean, there's no flaps, there's no LCD display, no mysterious hieroglyphics. It is dual purpose in that you've got a TV video switch. So if a customer comes into a showroom and you can find out that he's got a Thomson TV, it's an added selling point. He can drive his TV and his video recorder from this one handset.
So there's one handset less to lose behind
Indeed
the settee or something. Yeah, that'd be handy.
There is another switch, a bit more obscure, and that's in the battery compartment. Just get the lid off. Marked A/B. Now, if you happen to have 2 video recorders, 2 Thomson recorders, then you can set them up such that one will respond to the handset when it's in position A, and the other would respond to the handset when the switch is in position B. Now, it might be a bit of an obscure feature, that. The reason I'm pointing it out is that when you go in and change the batteries, you might inadvertently just knock that switch somehow into the wrong position, and you think you've got a duff handset. So it's always best to just check that switch before you write the handset off. There we go. And that's, well, I think that's the handset, really.
Right. What about installation of this? Any particular problems we're likely to come across, or is that, again, fairly simple?
Well, no, it's very easy because you've still got your on-screen display menu. For example, to set the clock, you just select an option 5. And if you want to set the time, the day, the month, the year, then you can select option 1 and you just step through the settings there, all very straightforward. If all you need to do is change the time, you know, summertime, wintertime business, you can add an hour or subtract an hour simply by pressing button 2 or button 3. So all that's very straightforward. I suppose the other thing you should do, of course, when you're installing is tune the thing in. But again, you just follow the menu instructions. Number 3 for program tuning. There's a sub-menu here. I mean, you can search and store programs individually. If you happen to know the UHF channel numbers, you can choose the rapid channel store option. If you run into trouble, you can even go to a help screen.
Very useful, very useful. Now, I know that this, of course, is not ever going to go wrong.
Gosh, no.
But on that occasion that perhaps it does, is it, you know, fairly straightforward to get into and to deal with when we are inside?
Yes, if I just unplug these leads. Okay, thanks. Now, I've taken the 5 screws out that hold the cover on, just to speed things up a bit, and we can just lift that off. Okay, just be a bit careful with the edges. They can be a bit sharp.
Oh, right. Thank you.
Okay. Right, and there we go. That's the inside of the machine. This is the signal panel, and again, ever so easy. There's 4 screws, 2 there and 2 there. Again, handily removed.
This is one you've prepared earlier?
Gosh, yes.
Wonderful.
So all we've got to do now is, in fact, just unclip the thing, and it just hinges back into a service position. Now I could go on and on. I could remove these 2 screws and the top cover of the cassette compartment comes out, so you can get the jam tape out. If you need to, 2 more screws underneath would remove the whole cassette compartment. And as I say, you can strip the whole thing down very quickly, but can we stand that excitement?
I don't think we need to go into that amount of detail at the moment, do we?
Okay.
But overall, you're fairly impressed, are you?
Yes, I am, yes. It's got a useful range of features, easy to operate, and easy to repair when it goes wrong. Right, or should I say, if it goes wrong.
Well, thank you very much for coming in to demonstrate all that.
Okay,
Peter.
thank you.
There we are then. Now then, quite a few different types of satellite signal strength meter on the market, and most are fine for azimuth and elevation adjustments, but a top quality installation needs to have the skew set up accurately. Our research and development department have produced a skew meter, and we asked Clive Tierney to tell us more.
Well, basically we ran into quite a few problems out in the field with dish LMB installations, and having investigated in detail, we came to the conclusion that the LMB was not being set up properly. Since throughout the country you have different settings for LMBs in different locations, it was difficult from the point of view of setting this up by eye to get it correct. So we decided to proceed with the development of a meter which would look into the other polarization rejection. And this was done using a technique which hadn't been used before. The skew alignment is obviously very easy on the meter, and basically by rotating the LMB and watching the meter on the skew position going to a minimum, you've actually located the proper position for the LMB. If we look at the spectrum analyzers that are set up, one is displaying all the vertical channels simultaneously, and the other one actually is being selective on centralizing one channel, but also showing the 2 adjacent horizontal channels that need to be rejected. And when the LMB is turned, you will actually see that in this particular case, the two channels which should be rejected will actually begin to show up as the LMB is rotated. This obviously would be extremely difficult in the field to take a spectrum analyzer out and do the similar exercise. And the meter actually, you will see from the meter adjustments that a similar situation occurs. We sent some prototypes out to the field through the DTSMs, and they came back with many suggestions, some of which we obviously incorporated and some of which were impossible, but the majority actually were incorporated in the unit. And we have come up, I think, with a unit that has given good satisfaction to those people who are now using it in the field.
I'm sure you're familiar with some GBC contracts. Most of you will have grappled with SIS or BITEX, for example, but you don't hear much about systems you're not involved with on a day-to-day basis. So we thought we'd do something to put that right. Here's one project helping Network Southeast keep in touch with their passengers. Within Granada, we have a great deal of expertise. We install and maintain satellite dishes, computers, telecom equipment, and of course, video gear. All this comes together in LT&S's PRIDE system, Passenger Rail Information Display Equipment. Passengers need information about their train times and the platform to use, and the traditional system is satisfactory up to a point. It provides limited information and cannot be used for detailed messages. Accurate, up-to-the-minute news about services is needed not just at a main terminus, like Fenchurch Street here, but also at the other stations served by the line. Suppose this station has to be closed because of a bomb scare. It would take some time to contact all the other stations and alert the passengers to the delays that would be inevitable. PRIDE can do it instantly. To find out more, we went to Southend Central Station. This is the operations centre for the London, Tilbury and Southend line, LT&S for short. And it's here that the PRIDE messages are handled. Two computers are used. This one produces or triggers the message. Now, I say produce or trigger because there are two ways information gets displayed. Some information is standard and is electronically stored at each display site. All the operator needs to do is to create a code, which tells the station equipment which message to retrieve from its memory. Alternatively, specialized messages can be typed in as the occasion requires. It may not be necessary to show the information on every display at every station, so we add addressing codes. This means that the passengers not affected will not waste time reading irrelevant information. The message moves into the next computer, which adds error detection and correction codes, and carries out various other tasks, getting a hard copy of the message, for example. The information is now ready to leave the building, and it goes on a surprisingly long journey. The modem feeds the data into the telephone system to a company called Data Broadcast International, who add the BR information to data from other sources and pass it on to Microspace in London, a firm dealing with satellite communication. Then, under the Atlantic, to Microspace in New York. And on to North Carolina, where it's transmitted to PanAmSat in geostationary orbit at 45 degrees west. And back to British Rail stations on the LT&S line in Network Southeast. After being collected by the satellite dish, the signal is demodulated from its FM carrier. Error checking and correction procedures are carried out, and the address is checked. If it matches the equipment address, the message is converted into RGB signals and fed to the TV. Well, I know you're asking why the message has to go all the way to the States, only to come back here. Couldn't it be uplinked from Southend or London to a European satellite? Well, technically it could be, but this solution turns out to be the most pragmatic. If you get on a train, you arrive at your destination following the existing route, and it's the same for the data. We've seen that other companies are involved, Data Broadcast International and Microspace, for example, and this transmission path fits in with their other operations. An interesting pilot scheme with GBC as a key player, working in cooperation with others to provide an efficient messaging system. If the experiment is a success, the scheme can be expanded to cover other areas of the country. Well, staying with satellite transmissions, the new Astra satellite number 1C is due to be launched in the spring, and there have been various rumours about the service it'll provide. To get the facts direct from Astra, we've invited Jonathan Hart along from Astra Marketing to give us the details. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, I say the spring. When exactly is the launch date then?
Astra 1C will be launched in May of 1993, becoming operational for broadcasting, I guess, around about the end of June or the early part of July.
Right, now we say it's 1C. Is it broadly similar to 1A and 1B? The same number of transponders, for example?
Indeed, it is. It will add another 16 television channels to the existing 32, making 48 broadcast across Europe in total. The actual configuration of the satellite is slightly different in that it will offer us the opportunity to back up the system with 2 extra satellite transponders, but these won't be active and available for broadcasting.
So is there a 1D in the pipeline? E, F, how many more are we going to have?
Indeed there is. In the middle of 1994 we'll see the launch of Astra 1D, and we've just recently announced Astra 1E, our 5th satellite, to be co-located with the other 4 that will be launched in the early part of 1995.
It's all fairly mind-boggling, well, to somebody as simple as I am anyway. How can all these satellites be up there in technically the same position without all crashing into each other? I mean, who's looking after all that?
Well, there is a guy in our headquarters over in Luxembourg who sits there playing a giant game of Space Invaders, trying to keep them all apart. No,
Terrible responsibility.
On a more serious note, there is a cube of space in the sky with edges of round about 70 kilometers. And within that box, we control the movement of the satellites. They, contrary to what people may believe, they actually drift slightly. It doesn't affect the reception of the programming, but they drift slightly. They're blown about by solar wind in the atmosphere. And
you're doing anything but reassure me.
No, quite simply, computers control the distance between them, and every so often the fuel is squirted to keep them moving apart. So my headquarters of the company is based in Luxembourg, so I always relate to it as currently having sort of 2 double-decker buses driving around a country about the size of Luxembourg. So hopefully that reassures you. The Luxembourgs are very good drivers. But hopefully that shows you that we can actually add more. And as I say, we already have plans now for 5 in the same box. And I guess some of my technical colleagues in Luxembourg would like to feel that they can add more as well.
Well, let's come on to the programmes. What can we expect as far as programmes are concerned on 1C?
Well, as usual, I have to be very careful about revealing the names of future channels at this time. What I can say, though, is I can be very confident that we will see additional English language services on Astra 1C, maybe 3, 4, or maybe 5, and they will be attractive, very high-profile services, adding to the existing 16 services that currently are broadcast in English to the UK.
You're not going to be any more specific than that, are
I'm
you?
afraid, as usual, I have to rest my case at that point.
Okay, then what about 16 by 9? We've talked about it here before. Can you give us any good news about that, the future of 16 by 9?
16 by 9 very clearly is the way of the future. I can't give any more specific details, but what I can say for sure is that I think 16 by 9 will be with us in a short period of time, maybe within the next 1 to 3 years. The key thing about 16 by 9 broadcasting is that it will be delivered via Astra first, whatever the standard happens to be. Satellite broadcasting will be the way of delivering 16 by 9 before we start to see anything happening on terrestrial technology.
What about the footprints? Are they going to be the same, or is going to be any great difference there?
We've always had a philosophy that if you install a dish on day 1 back in February of '89, that should be sufficient for you to receive the broadcasts from future Astra satellites. I'm pleased to say that still holds. Our future satellites, 1C, 1D, and beyond that 1E, will in fact, I'm pleased to say, probably have a better footprint across the UK than both 1A and 1B. So from that point of view, the key thing is that it should be more certain that the right size dish will serve for the future than ever before.
Well, that's good news. What about any anticipated interference problems?
Well, this has been a matter of some concern, I think, within the industry, and we've issued a number of documents to the trade over the last year. I think interference should not be an issue, provided that dishes are of the right size and are accurately installed. And I'm sure that all the installers viewing this will appreciate the need for accuracy of installation. When this industry started out, there was, by a long chalk, a lack of experience amongst some of the element in the installation industry, and dishes were, quite simply, very simple to install because there was no adjacent satellites. Nowadays it's a professional job. Dishes should not be sold or rented without installation, and it will become more and more sensitive in the years to come.
Somebody was asking me the other day about transponder sharing, which I know we have at the moment, where different operators use the same transponder at different times of the day. With 48 transponders on 1C, is that going to be necessary? And if it is it going to be possible?
The sharing of channels comes about because we don't have enough capacity, and the demand for capacity on Astra is very, very high due to the success of the dish sales throughout the UK and in other particularly important European markets. Even with 48 channels, I guess I'm pleased to say the demand for our capacity is still high. And in that context, I think we will see transponder sharing continue, especially in examples, for instance, where there may be programming during the day that is particularly targeted to that sort of viewership, and then it's the right sort of programming in the evening from another broadcaster of a more adult nature, for example. So that's the way it'll go, and I'm pretty sure we'll see that continue.
Mm. One last thing, radio by satellite, I imagine that's not such good news, is it, the future of radio by satellite?
I think satellite radio is a feature that is significantly underplayed at the point of sale and the point of installation. As an industry, I think it will continue to be successful so long as the radio broadcaster has some additional form of coverage, i.e. is a terrestrial broadcaster and uses Astra satellite radio as a way of increasing their reach. If you're just using Astra satellite radio as your only means of reception, then I think that it will take quite a while before the business starts to become profitable for the operator. Having said that, there are things that we can all do to help satellite radio and help ourselves. For example, at the point of sale, it can help in selling satellite, an extra added value benefit. But more importantly, at the point of installation, simply by connecting the receiver up to a hi-fi, for example, you can demonstrate very, very well the vast range of satellite radio channels available, many of which are broadcast in very good quality stereo sound. So that's, I think, something that will help customer service, add value to the service, and actually make an additional part of the revenue, and I think make people feel more positive towards the whole concept of satellite.
Well, thanks very much for coming in and explaining all that to us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, by now you'll have had the opportunity to see our programme about flicker-free and 16:9 television, which introduced the concepts and demonstrated the features of the Philips 8916 TV receiver. Now we can look at the subject again, but in greater technical depth. We'll start with flicker reduction in this edition of Update and carry on with other aspects in the next few programmes. As you saw in the introductory programme, one cause of flicker is the fading of the light from the tube phosphor dots after the electron beam has passed. By refreshing the dot twice as often, this effect is reduced. So the term 100 Hertz refers to the doubling of the field rate. This means that it now takes just under 10 milliseconds, half the previous time, for the tube electron beam to get from the top to the bottom of the screen. But if that's the only change to scanning rates, only half the 312.5 lines will have been scanned. The answer is to double the line frequency. Now a line is completed in 32 microseconds. And 312.5 times 32 microseconds gives us the 10 millisecond field rate. The circuits used to run the time bases at double speed are fundamentally no different from conventional sets. The oscillators operate at twice the frequency, and of course the output stages have their component values optimized to these new speeds, but overall design remains the same. Although we display a complete field in half the time of a conventional TV, the rate of transmission has not changed. It still takes 20 milliseconds for the field to arrive from the transmitter. Obviously, there's no point in alternating between a field of video and a blank screen every 10 milliseconds. So a memory is used to capture a field so that it can be displayed a second time. Before we talk about memories, though, let's have a look at the hardware. The layout consists of 2 horizontal panels containing most of the circuits, and a number of modules, one of which is the flicker reduction board. Philips have 2 versions of this module. The early version is called the high-end box, because it's fitted to the high end of the Philips TV range of models. But it's being replaced by the line flicker reduction, or LFR box. The C67KP9, which is the only 100 Hz TV that Granada and Vision Hire are taking this year, could have either type fitted. Getting back to the field memory requirement, both modules store one field of video information, but they do it in different ways. We'll start with the LFR method, the memory part of which is easier to understand. Video is separated out into luminance, R-Y and B-Y by components on the main board. Entering the LFR module, each is digitized and written into its own memory, then read out again at twice the speed. It takes 20 milliseconds to write the field in and 20 milliseconds to read it out twice. While the memory is being read out, the next field is arriving. This also has to be stored. It's not possible to read and write to the same memory simultaneously, so additional devices are necessary. Instead of 3 memory systems, that's 1 for luminance and 2 for the color difference signals, there are 6, 3 pairs for 3 signals. Looking at the luminance pair, a switching system is used. As one memory is being read, the other is filling with the incoming signal. During the field blanking interval, the switches operate and the read-write operations are reversed. Now we read the other memory twice while we write to the first. The 2 color difference signals are handled in the same way, except that the amount of information stored is not as great as for luminance, because the color bandwidth is much smaller. The high-end box memory is different. To halve the amount of memory needed, and so reduce cost, an alternative method of reading and writing is used. We'll only talk about the luminance part, but color difference is handled in the same way. We still want to read out twice for every one write, but it's done on a pixel-by-pixel basis, instead of the field-by-field basis we've just seen. A practical memory holds 281 lines with 696 pixels per line. That's over 195,000 storage locations for luminance alone. For obvious reasons, we've prepared a simpler graphic to explain how it works. This shows a memory holding 8 lines with 8 pixels per line, but the principle is the same as the real thing. So let's start with the memory full. That is, it contains a complete field of video, and it's already been read and displayed once. We now want to read it a second time. The rule is read twice, write once. Read locations 1 and 2, write new information into location 1. Read locations 3 and 4, write information into location 2. Read 5 and 6, write to location 3. We'll leave the graphic running for a few seconds so you can see how the thing develops. So, by clever manipulation of read and write cycles, Philips have managed to get one luminance memory to do what otherwise would have taken 2. As I mentioned earlier, color difference signals are handled in the same way, except the memory capacity is only 50,000 locations in round figures for each signal. But why not use this method in the LFR box? Well, that's because the LFR module also reduces another cause of flicker created by the interlaced nature of the TV picture. However, that's the subject of the next program. That's all for this program, so from me, for now, it's goodbye and all the very best for the new year.